Hello and welcome to another OceanCasts tutorial. Now it has been quite some time since I created the last video, so I'm going to go ahead and cover one major thing that's brand new since my last videos, and that is DigitalOcean's floating IP addresses. So if you're not familiar with the concept of floating IP addresses, they are basically the concept that you have two servers, so one server called server A and server B, so that server B would be a second server. And you have this one IP address. Now, granted, both of these servers have their own IP address already, but then you have an additional IP address you can get from DigitalOcean, which is free of charge, and I'll get to that in 1 second. And you can go ahead and throttle or toggle, if you will, between what server you want that IP address, that floating IP address, to assign to. So say for instance server A is experiencing technical difficulties, if you will, and server A cannot comprehend any incoming requests. So what you can go ahead and do is using the DigitalOcean API, or you can just manually go in and change it. You can go ahead and change the floating IP address from being pointed to server A and point it to server B instead. So it's really great for making sure your app is up all the time. So an instance you might want to do that is if you're deploying your code, you might want to just make sure it works first before you go ahead and make it available to the world. So that's when you might want to use server B as a backup server. So switch everything over to that, and that would be running old site, but then server A, update server A to the latest code, switch your filling back IP address back to server A, and then server B, you can update your code on that server. And then if you want to check it out, you can just go ahead and check it. So we're going to go ahead and cover this today, and this should not be a long tutorial by any means, but essentially what we're going to do is create two droplets and one floating IP address, and we're going to throttle between the two servers that floating IP address so we can see exactly what happens. So let's go ahead and get started by creating a droplet, and I'm actually going to go ahead and create two, but I'll go through this process with everybody. So I'm just going to keep this, I'm actually going to use the one-click apps just so we can see the difference. I will be using, let's see here, I want to use LAMP, and then we'll use LEMP because they have two different default pages. So one will be LAMP, and I'm just going to keep this at the default, basically the lowest minimum package. Now you will want to make sure that you have to use the same data center for both. So if you use New York 3, you cannot use Amsterdam 3 and have floating IP addresses to work. You have to use the same exact location. So we're going to use New York 3, or you can use whatever you want to use in this case, but that is totally fine. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and give this a host name of that's fine, and I'm just going to go ahead and create this droplet. So while this droplet's created, I'm going to go back and create one more now. And by doing this, we're creating our second droplet, which is also server B. So let's go ahead. We want to use one-click apps. We want to install LEMP, and I want to choose the $5 a month plan. I'm going to use New York 3. Again, remember that it has to be the same location as the previous server. And now this could work. Like if you have two servers in Amsterdam, they have to be in Amsterdam 3, 2, whatever. They just have to be in the same exact location. So if you had two servers, they'd both have to be in San Francisco, etc. You get the idea, I hope. So let's go ahead and create this other server. And now this one here is using that other version. So as we can see, they both have the same host name, but that's gonna probably give us an issue. It's gonna fix that. As soon as it's up, I'll go ahead and rename those servers, and then we can go ahead and actually see what we want to see. So as soon as these are done loading, all right. So this one here, I'm pretty sure is LAMP. So this is our server A. So let's go ahead and just rename it real quick. So let's go to settings, and let's go to rename, and I'll just name this server A just for namesake, so we know what's going on exactly. And this other server is still initializing, so we're gonna have to give it a couple more seconds. Is this one renamed? Yep, this one here, server A, as we can see. So that is totally fine. We can go back to droplets. We're still waiting for this server to pull up. So I just want to give it a couple more seconds here while it's figuring this out. Might be done actually. No, 12 seconds. Okay, there it is. So let's go ahead and do the same thing. Let's go to settings and then rename. I'm going to name this server server B. And we don't want to change that. So server B. So let's go ahead and renaming it, and there we go. So perfect. We have the host names of our server set up, and we are running perfectly fine. So as we can see, server A, server B. These are two servers with two different IP addresses. So let's go ahead and get started with networking. So in order to use this brand new feature of DigitalOcean, we need to go ahead and go to networking. Now here we can actually see that looks like you have no floating IPs. Well, that's because we have not set that up yet. So let's go ahead and do that. Now again, it says floating IPs are tied to data centers. You have to make sure both servers are in the same location. So we're gonna have to search for a droplet. So let's just search for server A, and let's assign this server a floating IP address. Now again, these are free as long as they are assigned to a server. If you have a floating IP address that is not assigned to a server, then you will not have, you'll be paying, I think it's $5 a month for that IP address. So make sure it's assigned to a server. Right, so now we go ahead and we have server A all set up. We have it pointing to this IP address. So let's actually go ahead and hit this IP address in our browser. So we're hitting this, and then we see Apache 2 Ubuntu default page. Okay, so that works. So actually, before we do this one step further, let's pull up both of these IP addresses in our browser so we can see exactly what happens. There's 1, and there's 2. Wait, what the heck? Copy. No. It's not copying it. Okay. Lamp. Okay, there we go. It works. Never mind. So this one here is server A, and this one here is server B. So right now we have networking pointing to server B, server A is which we wanted. So let's go ahead and switch this out, and let's change this to server B. Now remember, our floating IP address is this IP address, and let's just go ahead and refresh this one more time so we'll make sure we're on the same page. So right now this is pointing to server A. So let's go ahead now and change this so it points to server B. Give it 1 second. It's assigning that IP address. It can take a couple seconds. Oh, perfect. See, it's been assigned to this server. So that's exactly what we wanted to see. So now let's actually see if that happened. Refresh the page. Boom. We're using now Nginx. So what we just did is we throttled between server A, which is our Apache server, and server B, which is our Nginx server. All right, so that's pretty much it with the floating IP addresses. Now you can have another floating IP. You cannot have another floating IP address. I thought you could. Yeah, so you can have another floating IP address if you want, but there really is not a reason. You only really need one for 2 servers if that's all you're going to do is throttling between both of them. So that is pretty much it for right now. If there are any questions about this topic, because it can be kind of confusing sometimes if you're trying to figure out what server that IP address has to go with or how to use it exactly, just go ahead and comment on this video and we can maybe make another video for whatever you're talking about. That would be greatly appreciated. But that's it for today. If you've liked this video or anything of that nature, please go ahead and like, comment, rate, and subscribe. That'd be greatly appreciated, as it helps grow the channel and provide new and helpful content to the users. So that's it for today, and I hope everybody has enjoyed this video.